spotlight this for everybody. Oh, he's not ready to talk yet. Hey, Chief, I'm ready when you are. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you, Zenny?
Outstanding, sir. Great to see you there.
Good to be here, buddy.
We are already live. So, folks, this is a Chief's first time, but you generally know how we roll. It's the Chief talking far more than me. This is the Chief presenting his plans for OPD. And as a person who's been lobbying for that man to sit in that chair for something like 2 years now, man, I'm glad to see you there. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Good to be here, Zenny.
Thank you.
Awesome. Obviously, for those that don't know me, I'm LeRonne Armstrong, the new Chief of Police for the Oakland Police Department. This is day, I think, 45 or something like that, or close to it. Since joining the police department over 22 years ago, I never thought I would reach this moment, right? Although it's been a really, a dream for me, a journey for me, and one that I'm really happy to be in this position. And I thank the Mayor Libby Shab, for selecting me for this position, and I look forward to making some changes in the Oakland Police Department to make Oakland a safer city. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Oakland. I'm born and raised in Oakland. I grew up in West Oakland. Attended McClymonds High School. I'm a McClymonds High School graduate, so I always have to make sure people know the best high school in the city is in West Oakland. And so this is for me, a difference. Right? It's a tremendous difference from what I grew up around. Right, I grew up around in a community that didn't have a trust in law enforcement. And so to be able to lead an agency and try to create an environment where people trust law enforcement, where they actually appreciate the job that police officers do, but also ensuring that I have a police department that holds itself accountable, that practices constitutional policing, that is of service to the community and an asset. And they appreciate the amount of authority and responsibility that's been given to them by the community. And so really, as I move into this role, my primary focus is really making Oakland a safe city. Oakland, for my entire life has been a city that, has not been safe for everybody, particularly our minority community. And so really my focus is around trying to address the most pressing issue, which is gun violence. I think the sanctity of life is the most important thing that we have in humanity, right? That we have to protect life. And so my focus is how can we reduce gun violence, but not doing it in a way that arrests our way out of these problems. Right? You can't arrest your way out of a gun violence problem. It really has to be a collaborative approach to reducing violence, and that includes our Department of Violence Prevention and Chief Cespedes, who I work closely with, about how do we save enforcement for when enforcement is needed, but how do we try to intervene in violence? How do we try to prevent crime from happening? How do we try to encourage people to not pick up guns and be engaged in violence? That's what our focus is, and we call it a triangle response to violence. And that triangle response includes Department of Violence Prevention, the police department, but it also includes the community. It really leaves a space for community to be a part of that conversation. How do we allow community to share with those that are involved in violence or are at potential risk of being shot or shooting somebody? How do we let community be a part of the conversation so that they can let them know that we care about you, that we don't want to see you lose your life, and we definitely don't want to see you go to prison either. And so how do we, as a community, be able to support you and get you the help that you need? Also begin to help share with you that there's a way in which we can deal with conflict in a different way. And it doesn't mean that somebody has to lose their life. So that really is our focus. Internally, what I'm doing is centralizing our crime reduction focus. And so what I've done over the past week is move some resources around, created a new violence response unit called our Violent Crime Operations Center. I took our crime reduction teams, the 5 teams from across the city, and put them under one command structure. When you're a department that doesn't have a lot of resources, you have to be more efficient with your resources so that you can be effective. And so what I've done is really put together an operations center that is going to be responding to violent crime, trying to quickly apprehend those that are driving violent crime, and hopefully preventing violent crime from occurring. And that is really what our effort is. And so that is the first thing, is really driving down crime. The second thing, my second goal that I have is getting this department in full compliance with the negotiated settlement agreement. Most people know we've been under this agreement for over 18 years. And really, I think every chief that's sat in this seat, has had a goal of getting this department into compliance, but they've fallen short. What I've done recently is I've just created a Bureau of Risk Management that is completely dedicated to focusing on our compliance efforts. It's headed by a new deputy chief. Her name is Angelica Mendoza. She's actually also Oakland born and raised, and she's the first Latino female deputy chief in the history of the Oakland Police Department. So it's good to be able to promote her. It's good that community can see someone that reflects the diversity of our community. But also, I look at her as a very key component in our compliance efforts. As we, again, centralize our efforts underneath this bureau, that'll include internal affairs, our Office of Inspector General, our policy development unit, our training units, right? All of the areas that really drive our risk assessment throughout the department will be underneath her command, and we'll be working closely with the federal monitor to help move this department into full compliance. It's not that far off. We have 7 tasks that are not in compliance. And so it's my job to make sure we have a plan for each one of those individual tasks and work with the IMT to get us in compliance with each one of those tasks. So we look forward to the end of the year, hopefully reaching some level of full compliance, I hope.
How's the pandemic impacting what you're charged with doing?
The pandemic has a tremendous impact on our ability to address violent crime. The reality is that for many months, we haven't been able to go out and communicate with people. Our ceasefire strategy is driven by direct communication. It really allows us to bring people into the room who are at the highest risk of being involved in violence and having direct conversation with them and saying to them that, hey, we want you to do something different with your life. We want you to make different decisions. And so because of the pandemic and the restrictions that come along with the pandemic, we were unable to do that for the vast majority of 2020. But that has a huge impact. It also didn't allow the Department of Violence Prevention to actually be involved in violence interruption, which means that they need to be on the streets, going to where these individuals hang out at, going into gang territories, if you would, and having direct conversation with them. We call that custom notifications, essentially bringing forth a custom message to individuals that are involved in violence and ask them to do something different with their lives, but also providing that life coaching that they need to change their lives and change their trajectory. And so that the pandemic kind of slowed everything down, brought it to a screeching crawl as we tried to work through ways in which we could do it differently. And it took us a while to adjust, to be quite honest, not being able to have people in the room, forced to wear masks, having the social distance. But I think now as things begin to ease up and as vaccinations begin to take hold in our community, I think it's my hope that we have done a modified call-in with a smaller group. We typically would have between 15 and 20. We've had to now reduce that to about 5 to 10 at most in those rooms. So we have to do more sessions, but we're trying to accomplish the same thing. And so this is our adjustment to addressing violence. But I will say that the pandemic has definitely caused us some issues.
How about there's been, as you know, a gigantic spate of attacks on the Asian community nationwide. Yeah. And why do you think this is happening? And we both know how it's affecting Oakland. How is it affecting your department?
Well, I think what we've seen is that these are really crimes of opportunity. We really have seen people come into our Chinatown community and other areas looking for someone to take advantage of. The most difficult part is that they've attacked our most vulnerable population, which is our seniors, right? And our non-English speaking communities. And so our department was quick to respond. And I responded by creating a Chinatown liaison officer And that officer works directly in the Chinatown community. This officer speaks the language. We are working to try to build trust in those communities, because these communities oftentimes don't feel comfortable even reporting crime. And so that's the first start, is they're developing a relationship with this community where they feel like they can call on police. They feel like they can share information with police so we can better address these crimes. So that officer is on the ground. That officer is monolingual. That officer is there in the community, meeting with business owners, meeting with merchants, and attending community meetings to help share this message, to help reassure community that the OPD is responding. We've also increased our presence in the area by increasing routine patrols in the area. And so we're beginning to see a reduction in crimes in the Chinatown area in particular from month to month. So that's encouraging, right? It says that we're beginning to see the benefits of this change that we've made. But I still think it's something that all of us need to be aware of. One of the things I also did was actually put a liaison officer in the Latinx community. And so we have an officer assigned to the Fruitvale district as well. And that became more that, this problem in Chinatown, brought to light that there was a need for an officer in the Fruitvale area as well, again, where we have a community that is non-English speaking and that want to have a relationship with police, but hasn't had traditionally felt comfortable sharing information. That officer is there and he's on the ground and he's working closely with businesses and merchants. We're also developing relationships there as well. So we are doing our best to sort of, fill the gap in these communities that traditionally have not felt comfortable sharing information with law enforcement.
You're in the middle of a tug of war, as you know. Some want to defund the police, others want to maintain it, and we're in the middle of a pandemic with a large, higher crime rate than ever before. How is all this impacting what you have to do?
Well, I mean, it's definitely an impact, right? I mean, we've taken some significant budget cuts. I think as a result of those budget cuts, you've seen our sideshow activity skyrocket and shoot out of control and become much more violent than we've ever seen it. We've also seen the demand within our community for a faster response time by officers, which is obviously as a resource issue. We've also seen that the resources that were cut in both Chinatown and Fruitvale were cut as a result of the budget cuts. And so we've seen crime spike as a result of having less resources in the community. And so while I understand people's call for defunding, I think people sometimes don't understand what the overall impact will be. Right? What does that mean for a community? The Oakland Police Department is one of the smallest police departments in the country for a city its size with the level of violence that it responds to. And so when you have those two dynamics, if you have less cops, that means you have less police officers to respond to these shootings. We are experiencing 1 to 2 shootings a day in Oakland. We're now at 33 homicides for the year. Right. And so while people think it's, I think it's a dangerous road when people play with less resources when we have people losing their lives. Right. We need to be out there. I need to do my best to get as many cops on the streets as I can so we can have a greater presence, hopefully to keep our community safe. Listen, nobody in this city wants Oakland to be safer more than me. Right. This is my job. This is what I signed up for. But I have to have the resources to do that. And so while we all want to live in a community where we don't need police because it's so safe that we all feel comfortable walking down the street and nobody's going to harm us, there's no fear of crime, we're not there yet. And until we reach that point, I think we have to utilize these resources to keep people safe. I have young kids every time I go out in the community telling me that they can't walk down the street without feeling like something is going to happen, right? I continue to have elderly people telling me that they don't want to come out at night. My own mother, who lives here in the community, says to me, I will not come out at night because it's not safe and I'm afraid. And so as a chief of police, that makes you feel like, geez, man, if I can't even have my own mother come outside, it means that we got a lot of work to do. But we can't do the work without any resources. Those that want to commit crime in the city has not changed their minds. So whether you want to defund or not, if you don't change the minds of those that want to continue to victimize those in our community, then the problem just gets worse.
Oh, a mutual friend of ours, Father Jason Landezza, was on my show a couple of weeks ago. Great guy. said to me that in working with you, he discovered that the main problem was an increasing number of gangs.
Yeah.
Yes? What is this because of lack of money? What's the dynamic that's causing this sad problem?
I mean, I think what we have to, understand is that this pandemic has shut down all of our schools. Young people in our community, all the way from 10 to 17 and 18 years old, don't have any extracurricular activities that they could be involved in. There's no football, there's no basketball, there's no gyms being open, there's no rec centers open, there are no community-based organizations that are able to bring young people inside the building. So we have seen a difference in who's starting to be involved in criminal activity. We're starting to see much younger children involved in criminal activity. Some ages as young as 10 years old. Right. And so we know that this is a problem that's not just, affected our older, more violent guys that are participating in gangs and groups and things of that nature. This is also affecting young people who the pandemic obviously has had an economic impact on families. Right. People are out of work. People don't have money. People are stuck in houses. Anxiety levels are high. So all of these things sort of lead to people's decisions to be involved with groups and gangs because they don't have a lot of things to do. I think it also contributes to why we've seen so much sideshow activities because we really don't have anything for people to engage in right now, any sort of safe events that people can go to. And so, and with these limited options, I think people have chosen to get involved in things that they probably shouldn't.
Chief, I know you've got a busy chalk schedule. I'm blessed to get you for 22 minutes. Any closing thoughts?
No, just Zenny, thank you for your support over the years. I think all of that is meaningful. I think, I have tremendous support from the city of Oakland and the residents of Oakland and the people who have known me for many years. And so, I often say to people, just know every day I come here really with the motivation to try to make Oakland a safe city, that I care about this city. I love this city. It's